Be Wealthy and Smart, episode 515.
Step into a world of wealth and financial freedom without budgets, boredom, or bosses on Be Wealthy and Smart. And now, here's your host, Linda P. Jones.
Welcome to Be Wealthy and Smart. I'm Linda P. Jones, America's Wealth Mentor, empowering women and men worldwide to financial freedom. On today's show, we're going to talk about investing in cannabis because I've been chatting with you about investing in cannabis. I've been showing you our amazing results from the cannabis ETF, MJ, up 22% already year to date. But I think people need a little bit more of the nuts and bolts about cannabis, because when I heard the word cannabis, at first all I knew was about people who smoked it. I didn't know all of the ins and outs of the medical parts and other uses of cannabis. So it took me a little bit of research. It's still taking me research to learn more about it, but I think it's going to be so big and it's going to be so legitimized that we really need to get up to speed on this and really need to understand it, because I'm still getting some pushback from people who think I'm a drug pusher of some sort, which couldn't be further from the truth. I don't believe in illegal drug use. So for me to be positive about cannabis, there has to be some other reason. And the other reason is the medicinal use. To give credit where credit is due, this is an Investor's Business Daily article written by Allison Gatlin, dated January 7th, that made the cover of Investor's Business Daily. They're talking about cannabis. They're talking about the great investment potential of cannabis. And so I thought it would be important for us to talk about the ins and outs, talk about it from an investment angle, just get people a little bit more up to speed in case you're not as familiar with it, so that you can really understand what the potential for cannabis is, because I truly believe this is an enormous trend that is going to have unheard of growth potential. I mean, I just don't think we've seen anything like it. And we're just starting out. This is so at the beginning, because we don't have it even legalized in all 50 states in the US, and we just had it legalized in October in Canada. So we're at the very beginning of this trend, and that is where a lot of money can be made, is when you're in early on a trend. I mean, think of people who were in early into internet stocks. Think of people who were in early in the real estate boom. Think of people who were in early in Bitcoin when it was doing well. And I never was a fan of Bitcoin, but I have to admit, it did compound at a very high rate for many years. So it can be extremely profitable to be an early investor in some new innovation, new technology, new trends that are catching on, that are particularly huge. And one of the things that really excites me about cannabis is that I believe this is a worldwide trend. How many trends can you get into that are on the ground floor that are going to break worldwide and have demand worldwide? It's pretty unheard of, and that's what gets me all excited. So I wanted to share with you just some parts from this article. I'm not going to share with you the whole thing. It's quite a lengthy article. But I did pick out some paragraphs that I thought were particularly meaty, and ones that had some good explanations, some good comments, and some good explanation about what cannabis is and the medical potentials of cannabis. Toward the beginning of the article, it says, companies ranging from small biotech stocks to giant pharma companies like AbbVie are exploring cannabis medicine and what products can be derived from it. Many companies are in the startup phase, but hundreds of studies are underway on possible uses for cannabis, including many dealing in pain management. And billions of dollars in potential revenue await the biotech stocks and pharma companies that can navigate the tightrope between growing demand and wary regulators. All right, I just have to stop there. If that paragraph doesn't get you excited about investing in cannabis, I don't know what will. But it says we're in a startup phase for many companies, It's got many possible uses, including pain management, and there's billions of dollars in potential revenue awaiting for biotech stock companies, pharma companies, growers, and other companies. So right there in a nutshell, that should get you pretty excited about cannabis. The article goes on to say, there's too much revenue to be made by states and the federal government to not allow cannabis-related drugs and products to become available, said Miracle Mile Advisors portfolio manager Brian Sturz. Miracle Mile is an independent advisory firm in Los Angeles that works with high net worth clients. Still, the medicinal cannabis market is in its infancy. Industry and academic experts have yet to identify all the potential uses for the plant or the molecules that come from it. Some say the market could be in the billions of dollars just in treating pain. The advent of cannabis medicine and legal marijuana sales are joined at the hip, Sturz says. As more states legalize marijuana and reap the fruits of sales taxes, cannabis medicine will grab broader appeal. We're all taking steps to remove the stigma, he told Investors Business Daily. All right, I want to pause there and just say, yeah, there is still a stigma, and I think that's why you also have an opportunity to be an early investor and profit more, because other people haven't done their homework on this, and they might have the natural kind of turnoff like I did initially, where I just thought, oh, I don't want to get involved in something that was an illegal drug at one time. But then my girlfriend actually had back surgery, and her daughter had heard about CBD oil, and she explained to me how the THC, the drug part of the marijuana plant, was taken out and the CBD oil was left, which is the medicinal part, but it doesn't give you the drug high that THC has. So the CBD oil she used for her pain, and it helped her a lot better than the drugs that the doctor gave her. So while she was in intense pain after her surgery, she actually could heal better. And that was one of the first ways that I became aware of CBD oil and its benefits. The article goes on to say CBD is one of two well-known molecules found in cannabis. The other is THC. THC is responsible for the euphoric high associated with marijuana. Patients using a CBD oil or gel, like Epidiolex from GW Pharma or Zynerba's experimental medicine, want assurance it's pure. So again, there it is saying that you separate out the THC that is responsible for the high associated with marijuana from the CBD, which is the painkiller. In a moment, this article is going to go into how this, as a painkiller, the CBD is heads and tails above opioids. So think about that. Right now, we have a painkiller that is actually killing the patient. But CBD oil is superior in that pain relief, and it's not addicting and doesn't kill anyone. So what a huge improvement there. It could actually replace a whole lot of the opioid market. The article goes on to say, most cannabis medicine companies seem to be doing research today in CBD. Some examine the impact of cannabis medicine on cannabinoid receptors known as CB1 and CB2. The body uses these in processes like appetite, pain, mood, and memory. I want to take a few seconds to tell you about how I read more books and stay ahead of the curve. It's not by reading books, but instead by listening to them, like you are right now. With Audible, there are over 150,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player, and your first audiobook is free. I suggest you get the audiobook of Think and Grow Rich, or you can check out my website resources page, where I list all of my favorite financial books, and you can see exactly what books I've read and recommend you read. Then get started with Audible by visiting lindapjones.com/free book and order your first audiobook free. Get Think and Grow Rich or another book from my recommended list, and be sure to go to lindapjones.com/free book to get started checking off the books you want to read with your free book from Audible. I'll post the link to your free Audible book in the show notes. Now back to the show. I'm going to skip ahead a bit in the article. Miracle Miles Sturz expects Big Pharma to get into cannabis medicine in a big way. many big pharma companies are experiencing generic rivalries for some of their mature medicines. He expects big pharma companies to acquire biotech stocks with promising cannabis drugs to help diversify. Keep an eye on what's coming out of the mouths of major pharma, he said. I think that will be your indication. Once one gets bought, they'll all get bought. I want to pause there. Wow. All right. So he's saying there's huge merger and acquisition opportunity, that once one of these cannabis companies gets bought up by a biotech or a big pharma company, they're all going to get bought up. And that's usually the way it goes. Usually once one starts making a move, then another wants to be competitive, wants to be in the same market. There's so much profitability in cannabis that is what is really attracting them as well. Not only is it a huge market, but it's extremely profitable. So this is something that's really attracting them. Also, many of these big pharma companies, they have an exclusive on a drug for only so many years, and then that monopoly, that patent comes off, and they now are open to people copying them with generic drugs and taking away a lot of their profitability. This is something that could replace that profitability when their drugs come off their patent. So they're looking for ways to increase their profits because they know they're vulnerable to their profits dropping off as soon as they lose that exclusive patent. The article goes on to say, Catexo is investigating cannabis medicine in inflammation, but Rothbard sees a big future for cannabis medicine in treating pain. He says it could reduce demand for highly addictive painkillers now on the market. The National Institute on Drug Abuse says more than 115 people die of opioid overdoses daily in the United States. Cannabis medicine could help change that paradigm, Rothbard says. Globally, the opioid market will reach nearly $35 billion by 2025, according to Grand View Research. I think they're going to be a fantastic substitute for opioids in pain relief, Rothbard told IBD. 10 years from now, no one will be using opioids other than those patients directly out of the operating room. Then they'll be switched to activators of CB1 or CB2. Opioids are highly addictive, but that's not a problem with cannabis, he says. Patients on opioids reach a dose at which it starts affecting the heart, he said. That will never happen with a cannabis-based drug because the wiring of the signaling in the brain is fundamentally different. End of article. So there you have it. It could replace the opioid market. It's not addictive. What a great substitute for a terrible situation that we're having now where people are actually dying from opioid addiction. It would totally eliminate that, and that is a very positive and good thing that I would love to see. So, in summary, what are some of the things that we talked about? How this is a tremendously growing market. It's growing and going to be worldwide. It is not yet legal in all 50 states, but it is legal to some degree or another in 33 states. The medical uses of this can be separated from the drug use, and the medicinal purposes have the benefit of not being addictive and not having side effects. And they don't kill people. And finally, in terms of who wants to be in this market, biotech and big pharma companies want to get into this market so they can increase profits and be in on the ground floor. So you can think the same way as an investor and be in on the ground floor. Take a look at some different companies that are involved in the cannabis market. I like the ETF MJ because it is diversified. It has a lot of different cannabis companies in there for different uses and different purposes, different size companies. And I think right now it's so early, it's hard to put your money on which one is really going to be the leader. You might think it's the one who's leading today, but very often that isn't the one that ends up being the leader in the long run. Just think of MySpace and Facebook. MySpace was a company that took off and was the leader, and then Facebook completely supplanted them. There are companies right now that are looking very strong in the cannabis space, but they might get bought out. They might be an early one that's taken over. They might not be the most profitable one. Remember, the company with the greatest profitability is usually going to be a very successful company. Why? Because it can afford to stand on their own 2 feet. You see, companies that aren't as profitable are going to be vulnerable to a takeover bid. Because if they're not that profitable and they're not the best in the marketplace, they're going to have a harder time competing. And so they'll succumb to a takeover bid. Whereas a company that is extremely profitable is gaining on its brand and has a way to differentiate itself by creating a moat around itself that people can't easily compete with, meaning maybe it's creating its own flavor of cannabis, or it's creating some different quality, some branding around it. These things can be worth more. And it can also throw off a lot of cash where they can self-fund and they don't need to merge with another company. So think about Microsoft in its early years. It was making so much money on its software, it didn't need bank loans. It didn't need venture capital. It didn't need a takeover offer from someone else. And it grew on its own into the largest company of its day. Just like Microsoft, there may be some cannabis companies out there that are going to be so profitable and so different that they'll be survivors as standalone businesses. But many of these companies won't. Many of them will be taken over and bought out. And that's okay, because you can make money on that too. So that's why I think it's good to be diversified, because if you think you know which one's going to be successful just because they're successful today, I think that's too hard to call right now. It's too early. The ones that are out in front with these big, huge market caps, they don't have the profitability yet. I don't see them as being the big, huge leaders. It's a longer term horse race, and we're going to see who has the legs to stay for the long term, who's making the profit, creating the brand, creating the moat, and doing things to differentiate themselves that are really going to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and not have to be taken over as just another company that's growing cannabis. So this is something we want to watch. It's something you want to be very diversified in. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So an ETF is a good way to go here. Again, this is not a recommendation for you to buy it at this point. It's something that is at the top of the funnel for you to investigate further, talk to your investment advisors, be aware that investments can and do lose money. So consider this for educational purposes only. I hope you learned something with this report. I think there was a lot of great information in this IBD article, and I just narrowed it down for you into the more salient points, the points I really thought stood out for me as the really important points to understand about what's going on in this trend. But I think it's clear this is something that has a long way to go, and we are just in the early innings of this game. It'll be fun to watch, and I'll be here reporting it to you, of course. I have great news for you, and that is that the Wealth Heiress book is back in stock on Amazon, and that means we can start our contest again. We had a contest that was so successful. I loved it. You guys told me you loved it. There were 25 prizes that I gave away, and we are going to start that contest again. 11 people are going to be able to win my Wealthy Mindset Blueprint audios valued at $197. 11 people are also going to win a copy of my book, You're Already a Wealth Heiress, Now Think and Act Like One, 6 Practical Steps to Make It a Reality Now. And 3 people are going to win a half-hour wealth mentoring session with me valued at $500. So that's 25 prizes that you could win. All you have to do is leave a podcast review and you'll get your name entered into the hat 5 times. If you leave a book review, you will get your name entered into the hat 7 times. And if you do both a book review and a podcast review, you get your name entered into the drawing 10 times. Your chances of winning are very, very good. Also, please note that I have a survey posted in my show notes so that I can better understand who's in my audience, who's listening, what your needs are. It gives you the opportunity to tell me what you like about the podcast, what you don't like about the podcast, and what you're struggling with the most so I can tailor make some podcasts just for you. So please go over and Fill out the survey and let me know that you're here. If we haven't yet connected on Instagram, I'm giving away daily tips to financial freedom over on Instagram.com/Linda P. Jones. And as always, please subscribe to the show. Hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified as soon as new podcasts are available and you don't miss a one of them. That's all for today. Until next time, live the good life and be wealthy and smart.
Thank you for listening to Be Wealthy and Smart with Linda P. Jones. Share the wealth and tell your family and friends about the show. Check out our website, blog, and social media for more riches at www.bewealthyandsmart.com.